Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're tackling something, you know, that I know is a big deal for many of you paying for college.
Right.
We've got some audio excerpts from a book that's got some pretty unconventional advice on this. And I
Okay.
have to admit, some of it really made me rethink what I thought I knew.
Yeah, what's interesting about this book is that it really dives into the college cost crisis.
Yeah.
College costs have more than doubled the rate of inflation, while wages have stayed pretty stagnant.
Yeah, it's crazy how much the landscape has changed.
Right.
And the book doesn't shy away from the hard facts.
Yeah.
Did you know student loan debt now makes up a quarter of all consumer debt?
It's
That's a massive burden for people to carry.
it really is, and the book highlights the very real impact of this debt by sharing stories.
Yeah.
Like Fress's. She's stuck with almost $700 monthly payments for the next 15 years. Imagine the choices you have to make with that kind of financial strain, putting off buying a house, starting a family.
Absolutely. It's not just numbers on a page, it's people's lives.
Okay, so the problem is pretty clear, but here's where things get interesting. The book challenges some of the truths we've all been told about paying for college.
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember how our parents always said they'd help us pay even if it meant taking out loans?
Well, this book argues that might actually be terrible advice because it puts their retirement security at risk. Think about it. 43% of families prioritize college savings over their own retirement, but nearly half of them are at risk of not having enough saved for retirement. You could end up supporting your parents in their golden years instead of the other way around.
That's a good point. It's like a domino effect. Helping your kids with college could end up hurting everyone in the long run.
Right.
Okay, so what about scholarships and financial aid? Aren't those supposed to be the answer?
Well, the data in this book suggests scholarships might not be the magic bullet we think they are. The average private scholarship is only about 1,982 lens, and only 7% of students actually get them.
Wow, that is way lower than I expected. I guess those whole ride scholarships we hear about are pretty rare.
They are. And on top of that, some colleges use this tactic they call the crack dealer method.
Mm.
Essentially, they front load financial aid to lure students in, but then they reduce it in later years, forcing those students to rely more and more on loans.
That sounds so manipulative, like they're getting you hooked on the aid and then pulling the rug out from under you. What's the thinking behind that?
It's all about enrollment numbers and keeping those tuition dollars flowing. The author argues that colleges have their own incentives, and those incentives don't always align with what's best for the student.
So the takeaway here is that relying solely on financial aid can be risky.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to go in with your eyes wide open. Okay, what about the biggest myth of all?
Okay.
The one we've all heard a million times. Student loans are good debt.
Right.
It's an investment in your future.
Yeah. That's where this book really pushes back. It actually uses Milton Friedman's analysis to argue that student loans are uniquely risky.
Hold on, Milton Friedman.
Yeah.
The Economist, what does he have to do with student loans?
Friedman argued that student loans are dangerous because, unlike a house or a car, you can't sell your education if you need cash. It's what economists call illiquid.
Okay.
That makes it a much riskier asset to finance with debt because you're locked in even if things go wrong.
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way. It's not like you can just trade in your degree for a down payment on a house if you need to.
Exactly.
So just how long does it take to actually recoup the cost of a degree if you're financing it with loans?
Well, the book cites a study that found it can take a whopping 33 years to recoup the cost of a public university degree through debt financing.
33 years?
Yeah,
That's longer than some mortgages.
it is.
It's definitely something to think about. So if all these so-called truths about paying for college are wrong, what's the right way to do it? I mean, is there even a way to avoid this whole student loan trap?
That's where this source gets really interesting. It actually proposes a radical idea, graduating from college, completely debt-free.
Debt-free?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, when I first read that, I was pretty skeptical. Is that even realistic these days?
I know it sounds idealistic, but the book actually breaks down the math, and it's pretty compelling. It uses an example budget
Okay.
of $15 a week in family cost cutting, the student working 30 hours a week at $9 an hour, plus tax credits, starting at community college and then transferring to a 4-year university.
Wow.
It's definitely a tight budget, but the numbers add up.
Okay, I'm starting to see how the pieces fit together.
Yeah.
But $15 a week in cuts? That seems tough for a lot of families.
I hear you. Not every family can swing that. But even small changes can make a difference. And think about the psychological benefits of this pay-as-you-go method. There's less reliance on the uncertainty of financial aid. you're in control of your finances, and there's no looming debt hanging over your head.
I love that no more financial aid roulette. You're taking ownership of your education and your financial future.
Exactly. And the book doesn't stop there. It offers some additional tips that can make a big difference, like, did you know you can pay for college monthly?
Monthly payments. Now that you mention it, it makes so much sense. Why didn't I think of that?
Right. It seems so obvious, but the book really emphasizes how installment plans can make those college costs more manageable. Instead of one giant bill, you're breaking it down into smaller, more digestible chunks.
That would have taken so much pressure off when I was applying. Okay, what other tips does it have?
Well, have you considered graduating in 3 years instead of 4?
That's a pretty intense pace. Is it even possible to fit everything in?
It depends on your major and your school,
Yeah.
but it's definitely doable for many students. And think of the financial benefits, a whole year's worth of tuition saved.
Okay, I can see how that would be a huge advantage, but I guess you'd have to be pretty disciplined and organized to pull it off.
True, it's not for everyone, but it's something to consider, especially if minimizing debt is a priority.
For sure. What about this intelligent family contribution thing I keep hearing about?
That's one of the core concepts in the book. It's about families being brutally honest about what they can truly afford to contribute to college without jeopardizing their own financial well-being.
Okay.
It's about making smart choices that benefit everyone in the long run, not just emotional ones.
I like that it takes the emotion out of the equation and forces you to look at the numbers realistically.
Exactly. And speaking of looking at things realistically, the book doesn't shy away from the dark side of financing college student loans.
Yeah, that's the part I was dreading.
It's not pretty. Did you know student loan debt now represents a whopping 25% of all non-real estate consumer debt?
That's insane.
It is. And the book goes beyond the statistics, sharing personal stories from borrowers who are struggling to make payments, putting off major life decisions, and even facing anxiety and depression because of this debt.
It's easy to forget that there are real people behind those numbers dealing with the consequences every day. So what makes student loans so uniquely risky? I mean, debt is debt, right?
Not all debt is created equal. The book highlights a key difference, the illiquidity of a degree. You can't just sell your education if you hit a rough patch financially like you could with a house or a car. It's a long-term investment with no quick exit strategy.
That's a really important distinction. It makes student loans a much riskier bet. So just how bad can things get if you can't keep up with those payments?
The book doesn't sugarcoat the consequences of defaulting on student loans. It can trigger a cascade of financial nightmares. Massive penalties, lawsuits, wage garnishment, and damage to your credit score that can haunt you for years.
It sounds like a never-ending spiral.
It can be. And what's even more alarming is that some lenders actually profit more when students default.
Wait, seriously? They make more money when borrowers fail. How is that even possible?
It's complicated, but it basically boils down to the way some loans are structured and the types of insurance involved. It's a pretty messed up system, and it underscores the need to approach student loans with extreme caution.
Yeah.
They're not just a benign form of financial assistance. They're a serious commitment with potentially devastating consequences.
Okay, I'm starting to get a serious case of student loan anxiety here. Is there any good news? Are there ways to reduce the burden of these loans if you already have them?
The book does mention the tax deductibility of student loan interest, but it argues that this benefit is often overstated.
Okay.
The savings might be relatively small, and there are income limitations that make it inaccessible for higher earners.
So not exactly a silver bullet.
Right. And it also cautions against relying on loan forgiveness programs. Those programs can change, and they often have really strict eligibility requirements. It's not something you should bet your financial future on.
So it sounds like the best strategy is to avoid student loans altogether, if at all possible.
That seems to be the recurring theme here.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What are some alternative ways to approach financing college?
Well, we've already touched on some of them. Cutting family expenses, working part-time, starting at community college, and taking advantage of tax credits.
Right, the pay-as-you-go method. But is that really feasible for most families?
It's definitely challenging, but the book provides a detailed example of how it can work. It might mean making some sacrifices and getting creative, but it is possible.
I guess it all comes down to priorities. If a debt-free degree is important enough to you, you'll find a way.
Exactly. And remember, the book also highlights the psychological benefits of this approach. There's a sense of accomplishment and empowerment that comes with knowing you're paying your own way.
I can definitely see that. Okay, so we've talked about alternative financing options, but what about the college itself? Does the name on your diploma really matter as much as we're led to believe?
That's a great question, and it's one that the book tackles head on. It challenges the assumption that a prestigious, expensive college is the only path to success.
So is it all just hype? Are we buying into a myth about the importance of a big name school?
The book presents some compelling arguments that suggest it might be. It cites studies showing the financial return on investment for a college degree might not be as impressive as we think, especially when you factor in the cost of tuition and potential student loan debt.
So we're not necessarily getting what we pay for.
That's what the book seems to be implying. It argues that the value of a college degree might be more nuanced than just the name on the diploma.
Okay, so if it's not all about the name, what factors should we be considering when choosing a college?
The book emphasizes the importance of looking at the actual learning experience, the quality of the faculty, the opportunities for research or internships, and the overall fit with the student's interests and goals. It's about finding an environment that fosters intellectual growth and personal development, not just a fancy name to put on a resume.
So it's about looking beyond the surface and finding a college that truly aligns with your values and aspirations.
Exactly. And it suggests that a less prestigious, more affordable college might offer a better return on investment in terms of both education and financial well-being.
That's a really important point. It challenges the conventional wisdom that we're often bombarded with.
It does. And it empowers students and families to make informed decisions based on their individual needs and goals rather than just following the crowd.
Okay, so maybe the college you attend isn't the be-all and end-all of your future success. But what about getting a job afterward? Don't employers still care about where you went to school?
That's a common concern. But the book argues that a prestigious degree isn't the only way to build a strong resume and stand out in the job market.
So what are some alternative strategies?
The book emphasizes the importance of gaining practical experience through internships, volunteer work, and part-time jobs. It suggests that these experiences can be just as valuable, if not more so, than simply having a prestigious degree.
So it's about demonstrating your skills and building a portfolio of real-world experience that showcases your abilities.
Exactly. And it encourages students to be proactive and seek out opportunities that align with their interests. It's about taking ownership of your career development and building a unique skill set that sets you apart.
I like that. It's not just about what you learn in the classroom, it's about how you apply those skills in the real world.
Right. And the book also highlights the importance of networking and building relationships with professionals in your field. It suggests that those connections can be incredibly valuable when it comes to finding jobs and advancing your career.
So it's about putting yourself out there, making connections, and learning from people who are already doing what you aspire to do.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and building a strong network, not just relying on your degree to open doors for you.
Okay, so it sounds like the book is advocating for a more holistic approach to education and career development. It's not just about the college you go to, it's about the choices you make, the experiences you seek out, and the network you build.
Absolutely. It's about challenging the traditional narratives we're often fed about the path to a fulfilling career and creating your own definition of success.
I love that. It's about taking control of your own destiny and creating your own opportunities.
It is. And it's about recognizing that the traditional markers of success might not always be the most meaningful or the most fulfilling.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into paying for college, what's the biggest takeaway for our listeners? What do we want them to remember?
I think the most important message here is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding what works best for you, your family, and your financial situation.
It's about being informed, weighing the risks and rewards, and making choices that align with your values and goals.
Exactly. And it's about challenging the assumptions and the conventional wisdom they were often bombarded with. Don't be afraid to question the status quo and explore alternative paths.
Because ultimately, your education and your career are about more than just a paycheck. They're about pursuing your passions, contributing to the world, and creating a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So if you could design a better system for financing college, what would it look like? How can we make higher education more accessible and less burdensome for students and families?
It's a great question to ponder. It's a complex issue with no easy answers. But I think it starts with having open and honest conversations about the true costs and the potential risks. It's about empowering students and families with the knowledge and the resources to make informed decisions.
It's about creating a system that's fair, sustainable, and truly invests in the future of our students without saddling them with a lifetime of debt.
Absolutely. It's a challenge, but it's one worth tackling.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with some food for thought. Explore the resources we've provided, do your research, and create a plan that works for you. Remember, even though the system might be flawed, you have the power to take control of your college financing journey and avoid the debt trap.
The power is in your hands.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep exploring.
And keep diving deep.